Ion storms rip the sky of Kalos 7 as a lone exiled pilot hears a dying beacon and rides Thunderbolt into the white fire. He digs through metal and sand to pull a wounded Draconian from the wreck and awakens a signal that will not stay buried. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to the channel and like the video and tell us where are you watching from. Now, let's jump into the story. Jace kept time by the chisel. Each stroke sang against the scarred metal and made tiny wings from the hull's scraps. The ion storms of Kalos 7 were shrieks and white fire outside. Inside the crashed fighter, there was the slow heartbeat of a dying world and the steady orange glow of the emergency core. Jace was 43 and practiced the long quiet that comes after too much loss. He had learned how to make a home from wreckage. He had taught himself to look away from the past. The distress ping arrived like a note someone had left on a table. Faint, wavering, almost eaten by the storm. Jace froze with his plasma chisel half lifted. Leaving the fighter meant stepping into the storm the settlers called Widowmakers, storms that fried minds and machines alike. He told himself to ignore it. He told himself many things since the night his squadron burned and his wife and their unborn child were gone. The warning he had once given himself, never again, was a rope around his chest. Still, the bike's shielding hummed under his palms before he finished the thought. He mounted Thunderbolt with hands that no longer trembled at speed. Thunderbolt was more than a machine. It was promise, muscle memory, a friend that never asked anything of him. The storm slapped at the visor and made the world into a roaring blur. Jace followed the beacon to a trade route half buried in metallic sand. There, like a toppled toy frozen mid-tumble, lay a passenger transport. The wreck showed scars of flight and flight from something worse. Escape pods gaped open like shells. Bodies lay stiff in their harnesses. Jace's stomach tightened, but he went on, because he could not do otherwise, because the ping had human insistence in its tone. A glint under the sand caught the bike's light. He dug with gloved hands and found a scaled arm, delicate and bronze. Celery's face emerged, a female Draconian, bronze gone dull from dust, wings torn. Eyes closed like she was saving all her breath for waking. The scanner's life sign flashed faint but true. Jace could have left. He told himself to leave. Exile taught him to be selfish. Caring had cost him everything. But that was a different kind of selfishness now. He wrapped Celery in thermal blankets, strapped her to Thunderbolt, and fought the storm back to the fighter. Each breath she took was a small victory. Inside, the heating unit spit warmth and shadows. Jace worked with a quiet efficiency gained in wars. Removed torn garments, warmed stiff limbs, applied disinfectant, set broken bones with hands that had once steadied gunships. Celery's scales gleamed faintly as blood warmed and color returned to bronze. When she stirred, the room tightened with the sharp music of another species' voice, a trill that sounded like wind through cracks. For a while, they spoke little. Celery clutched the blanket like armor and watched him with eyes that had seen cities with clean air and clockwork towers. "Where am I?" she asked in accented common. "Kalos 7, Jace said. "This is not safe for your kind." She blinked, inner lids revealing sorrow. "I had business in the core systems." He boiled rations and pushed a tray toward her. Food tastes different to different mouths. She tried it cautious, then with surprised approval. Small laughter leaked out of Jace, the kind that surprised him more than it did her. The storm did not quit. Days bled into nights. Jace kept watch by the heating unit, while Celery slept in the cargo hold. She learned to help, tightening a seal here, polishing an old sensor there. She asked questions about his eagles, the tiny sculptures on a shelf. "They understand me," Jace said once. "They are free, but they fly alone." Celery touched one with a careful claw and said she had seen something similar carved on her world's docks, a human symbol now shared. Each repair, each small kindness, chipped at the walls Jace had built. Sometimes, grief rose like smoke and made him stiff and distant. Other times, when silence hung heavy, Celery hummed in her throat, a draconian lullaby that sounded like salt wind, and Jace felt the ache loosen. Then, one night, a broken signal gripped the comm unit. A tracker ping, old tech with an alien frequency. Jace watched the readout, then looked at Celery. Her eyes narrowed with worry. Her hand went to her damaged wing. What tracked them was unclear. A rescue ship? A hunter? Or perhaps the very reason her transport had fled. The storm beat the hull like a drum. Jace set the plasma chisel down and picked up the rifle. He had sworn never to walk into another fight, but when the storm howled and the unknown signal cut through the static, something in him tightened and steadied. He would not let the night take this living being without a fight. That first part ends on the edge. Jace and Celery, two strangers of different blood, warming beside a small heater under a wailing sky, both braced for what the signal might bring. The hook keeps the viewer waiting. Will help arrive? Is danger near? And as the camera would linger on the tiny metal eagles, viewers feel the promise that something, hope or trouble, will change everything. Morrow kept his world small. The cockpit was his calendar and his memory box. He counted days by the amount of dust that collected in the corner and by the number of eagles he had carved from scrap. Nights on Kalos 7 were loud with storm. Days were gray and careful. The life he chose after the war was simple. Food, power, thunderbolt. Don't answer beacons. Don't trust strangers. Don't let the past in. Then a faint chirp bed space in front of him. The distress call was weak, pulsing like a heartbeat under a blanket. Morrow felt the old reflex, to look away. The refugee in him, the man who learned how to survive alone, wanted to stay put. Yet his hands moved automatic, pulling on his suit, engaging the hoverbike. Perhaps it was the sound, human or otherwise, that drew him. Perhaps it was the tiny carved eagle he rotated between his fingers as if needing company. The route he chose was old and half swallowed by sand. The transport lay on its side with a ruined wing and open cargo tossers. Bodies of settlers and crew lay still. A pilot dangled at a strange angle. In the rubble, a flicker of bronze showed through sediments. Ithra was small under the sand. Her wings collapsed, her breathing a barely there rhythm. Morrow's scanner caught a life sign, and he dug, ignoring the storm's pain. The rescue back to his fighter was tense. Thunderbolts screamed against the charged wind. Ithra's skin was a copper sheen, dust curling in the creases of her scales. He worked quickly and silently once they were inside, used to the efficiency of veterans. When she opened her eyes, she first blinked at the heating glow, then at the mess of the cockpit that had been his castle for years. She hissed, then hissed softer as he handed her a ration. "What happened?" she asked in broken common language. "You were running," Morrow answered. "Something chased you." The first days were a study in contrast. Ithra came from a world of humid quartz and careful protocol. Here, she had to learn that thermal blankets were the same as shelter. She asked about his eagles and lifted one to her face with gentle claws. "They look like birds of home," she murmured. Sometimes she hummed, and the sound loosened Morrow's chest, making him wonder if the silence had been less a choice than a shield. Storms kept them bound to the fighter. Each night, the battery meters clenched like a shared worry. Ithra learned to patch vents and to read the old navigation maps. Morrow taught her to prime the hoverbike, how to feel when a shield would fail. One evening, a supply crate fell and a bolt pierced Ithra's palm. He cleaned it and held the cloth until the green copper of her blood stopped. For a moment, their hands met and the universe narrowed. Something unspoken slid between them, dangerous and fragile. Late on the third day, a broken message echoed in the comm, a registry ping with the call sign of a draconian clan. Ithra stiffened, whispered words quickly in her tongue, and the cockpit filled with the heavy scent of worry. The signal was barely a shard of data, either a rescue call or a hunter's beacon tracing her origin. The storm outside made choices urgent. Morrow watched her face, and the old reflex to walk away hit him like cold. He had learned to keep his life small, to avoid more graves. But when he saw Ithra's hands clench, hands that had once carried titles and purpose, he felt an old thing return. The sense that to save another could be to be saved. The second part ends on that brittle edge, a faint ping. Ithra's clan might come. Someone may arrive from the core systems. The viewer is left with the question, what will Morrow choose? For safety or for something more? Corrin's hands could fix any circuit and not ask why the world needed fixing. After the war, he made shelter of a downed fighter. And each day he checked the seals and oiled moving parts that creaked like old regrets. Solitude fit him like a second skin. He had rules. Keep the bike in the hangar. Keep the tools in order. Do not answer beacons. The beacon came like a whisper that would not be ignored. It was not human cadence. It was old military code and a draconian frequency sewn into it. Corrin tried to tell himself it was a trap. He ignored it twice. Then he felt the shape of someone else needing warmth. The storm was a wall of white. But Corrin rode Thunderbolt into its teeth and found a mangled passenger ship half buried. Taliax lay curled like a thing that had given up. Her scales were a mix of bronze and pale cresting, a hint that her lineage mixed with worlds. Corrin dug through the sand with gloved hands until he felt the warmth of a faint breath. He wrapped her and took her back. The rescue felt less like a choice and more like an answer he'd forgotten he could give. Inside the fighter, Taliax slept and slept some more. When she woke, she hissed and then startled at the cramped cockpit. Her first questions were sharp. Who are you? Where is your crew? Corrin shrugged, said his name, then turned his face to the heating unit. She had been on urgent business and now was stranded. The two of them learned small things. How Taliax favored bright light to read her clan's glyphs. How Corrin whistled without meaning to when he filed metal. Days of repair followed. Taliax's wings mended slowly as Corrin cleaned and stitched membranes. She helped him fix the intake vent that had jammed with sand. Each joint fixed was a silent truce. Once, when a salvage drone passed overhead, sounding an alarm, Corrin chose to fight and rigged a decoy. Taliax watched him work, and the old wall he kept thinned. The drone passed, leaving them with a small victory and larger questions. When a weak signal pulsed through the comm, a draconian registry, Taliax's fingers trembled. The signal read like a threat and like hope at once. Corrin could send her out into the open for pickup, or he could offer Thunderbolt and go with her. He had vowed never to carry another living weight. Yet the campfire memories of past regret pushed him. The choice would not be easy. This part closes on that choice point. Corrin looks at the radar and then at Taliax. The storm has quieted to a hush, but outside, the world is a wide place with other lives moving through it. Viewers are left waiting. Will Corrin stay, or will he try something new? Ren had learned the math of survival. Ration the heat, store the water, never let anyone else set the clock. His crashed fighter was a small safe room where rumors of the old life came in data shards and etched eagles. He liked things kept simple and close. A brittle ping changed the rhythm of the day. It was faint and layered with a frequency not used by many. Ren suited up and rode Thunderbolt into the storm. The path he took was old and treacherous, but he knew it by memory. He found a passenger transport tipped into a dune, and under the hull, Mirith, a draconian noble with torn wings and the wind in her scales. The rescue was a quiet ritual. Ren moved with a soldier's care. Strip away wet cloth, wrap in blankets, warm the chest, stitch membranes. Mirith came too slowly, eyes opening like doors. She smelled of cinnamon and storm, and when she saw Ren, she hissed first, then relaxed when she realized he had not harmed her. She spoke of urgent business in the core systems, of a mission interrupted by something chasing her convoy. The first nights turned into making do. Mirith learned to sleep on the cargo platform. Ren kept a vigil by the heater while she recovered. They traded stories in small slices. Her life as a clan agent with responsibilities, and his life as a man who had lost everything. She tried his ration packs and made a surprise trill of approval at the taste. He showed her his carved eagles, and she placed a claw upon one as if to return an old blessing. When the comm unit caught a faint registry call, both their faces shifted. The ping might mean coming rescue, or it could mean trackers closing in. Ren faced a choice: send Mirith out to safety and remain in exile, or prepare Thunderbolt and leave with her for unknown space. The decision pushed at old scars. In the end, Ren set the hoverbike's engine and packed a small bag, spare parts, a carved eagle, a faded picture tucked between plates, and a small vial of his wife's song chip he kept for nights when the storm felt too loud. Mirith wrapped a repaired membrane over her wing and offered Ren a simple oath in her language, a promise, not of duty, but of company. Together, they climbed into Thunderbolt. As they rode away, the dunes settled behind them. The storm's howl softened like a memory. This final part ends with a unique phrasing of the same truth. Two battered travelers, once alone, choose the uncertain road together. They carry scars and small hopes, and the camera would linger on the metal eagle tied to Thunderbolt's frame. Viewers leave with the sense that rescue is not just saving a body, but choosing to face the future with someone else. And that sometimes exile ends when two people decide to travel side by side.